Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Jeannie, welcome to 10,000 Miles. How are you this morning?
I'm good, Vic. Thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come on and chatting with me for an hour or so here today. Hey, for the audience, I've known Jeannie for a number of years through this thing we called the channel. And we've had the opportunity to do some work together and collaborate on some projects over the years. And what always struck me is what you're seeing right now is this big, bright smile that always exudes from Jeannie. I think she's, it's a bit of an addiction for her. She's just such a pleasant, nice person. And, she's had some really great roles along the way and really gets our business in a way that I think is unique to some, should be more common to most. And I thought it would be fun to unpack sort of the nucleus of where this smile, this energy, and this positivity comes from today. So how's that for an intro for you, Jeannie?
That is a great intro. That is a great intro. I'm going to play that in my home just to, yeah.
As you walk in the door.
That's going to be my walk-on music will be that intro. Thank you so much.
I love it.
Very kind of you.
Take a second here and take all the time you want, actually, and just introduce yourself to the audience, please.
Sure. Well, my name is Jeanne Duca. As you said, I am the Chief Marketing Officer for BCN, a company that is well known in the channel. We are a managed network and technology solutions provider. And I've been with BCN for 9 years now, believe it or not. Time has really flown. And it's just an amazing company to work for. Family owned, management is wonderful. Richard Boudria Jr., who took over as CEO and chairman from his father, Dick Boudria, who started the company 30 years ago, believe it or not, almost 31. And it's an amazing environment. We have tenure of 10 plus years among our team, which in this business, in any business these days, is really unheard of. So we've got people who've worked together for 20 plus years, finishing each other's sentences and just really understanding together how things work. And it's just a really, really amazing place to be.
Well, it's with that introduction of that company, now I know even more why you're there. You're a perfect fit. You're a family person. You're part of the family. And, I love the collaborative nature. And we love BCN, by the way, over at D&M. And we love all the people there. And, we have a long history with Ryan, but we've also been a good partner to BCN over the years. At least I think we have been.
Yes, you have.
But it's cool that we're getting to do some work together now as well. So
yes, very exciting. Of course, D&M Enterprise Group has been a partner of BCN's for a long while. And for those of those listeners who may not know, BCN goes to market exclusively through the channel. So our channel relationships are even more important to us than perhaps to others who may also have a direct conduit to the customer opportunity. So we're just thrilled with our relationship, with the relationships we have, across the TSD community and the trusted technology advisor community. It's just a really, it's a great place to be. The channel is, unique. It is fun. We just, as you know, came back from the Vegas show, which is a highlight of every year. I think this was I want to say it was about my 17th year in a row being at that show. So it has been, it's almost, I describe it like coming back to school after summer break, going back to college, and you see all the people you haven't seen in months, and there's a lot of, hey, how are you? And hugs and just, back slaps, and everybody really, really excited to see each other. And that's across the board. I mean, you could be competitors. You may have worked for that company, or someone may have worked for you in the past, but that all seems to fade away when everyone is together. And it's really a supportive environment, which I know you guys find as well.
Yeah, we're going to come back to that because I love your perspective on it, and if I want to go deeper there. But what I'd like to do first is I'd like to get the audience to know more about you.
Okay.
So take us back to, I guess ultimately what I like to know is how did you find yourself working for a technology company in the channel. But before that, like give us the Jeannie story a little bit. Like, what has your journey looked like?
My journey has been one of great good fortune, I would say. I am extremely grateful for the career that I have had and the path that got me here. I started off, I always wanted to be a teacher. And my dad, who has been a sales executive, his whole career, counseled me that that was a fine profession, but you're not going to make much money doing that. Are you sure that's what you want to do? So after I got over my indignance of how dare you, tie my career to money, I actually decided that I wanted to pursue advertising as a career.
Okay.
And I was fortunate enough to go to the Newhouse School at Syracuse University,
Nice.
which is a premier communications school, and studied advertising, graduated with a degree in advertising, and got right into technology companies right from the get-go. So my first job out of college was with a company by the name of Digital Equipment Corporation.
Sure.
That was eventually purchased by Hewlett Packard. And I was there for a number of years in general communications and all the way up to director of brand management for one of the divisions of that company. So I was always in technology. I'm not a technologist. I'm not an engineer, but I'm a quick study. And in the work that I do, you really need to be able to listen and learn and understand enough so that you can communicate what's important about whether it's the product, the solution, the company, the people. And that's always been something that I've been good at, and I'm thankful to be good at that. But from there, when I left there, I had a young son. He was 7 years old, and I started my own consulting firm.
Wow.
And yeah, so that I could be at home with him. And I did that for 10 years, and I consulted with technology companies and did brand creation and brand management for those companies. I also did a couple of side things. I ran a campaign for a district attorney candidate and, did some different stuff just to fill in, but primarily I worked for technology organizations. So some that were rebranding, some that were brand new and creating their brand for the first time. And that's really what I love, just understanding, meeting the people, knowing what it is they want to be and how they want to communicate and making that happen for them.
That's neat. What was it like? How'd you have the courage to start your own thing with a young son?
Well, I think that's what drove me. I really wanted to be home more. I didn't travel that much, but I did work, full time in an office. And, I missed being with him. He was really well taken care of by my mom. And I'm so, so very fortunate to have had that experience, as is he. But I wanted to be home with him more. So that gave me the courage. And I started off with some great clients. And it was really fantastic. I was a sole proprietor, and I would bring in kind of subcontractors when I needed them, whether it was specifically in the PR space or website design, whatever that might be. Not unlike what I do now, for BCN as a member of that team. But interestingly enough, my last consulting client was in the channel. It was a company by the name of TNCI. They were a small national reseller based in Boston, right across from Fenway Park. And I consulted with them for about a year or so. And then they hired me to come on full time and be their AVP of marketing. So I was there for 10 years, and that's where I really learned about the channel and became just such a fan of the environment, of the people, of the partners and the relationships themselves.
How did you get business?
How did I get business as a consultant?
When you were independent, you decided one moment you were going to go independent. You had a 10-year run.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, congratulations, because the stats on people in business who don't make it past 3 to 5 years are staggering. It's over 95%. So it was interesting. Part of the elite.
Thank you, Vic. And it's really like anything else. It's kind of who you know. And, I worked my network. I worked my network from digital, people who left as I did when HP made the acquisition of the company and went to different places, and we kept in touch. And remember, this was all before LinkedIn and dare I say text messaging. So it was a lot of phone calls and just emailing and really working the network to find out where people had gone and what kinds of things they might need help with. And that's how it just kept rolling. And I didn't want to become the biggest communications and branding consultant. I needed just enough work to do what I needed to do and live the way I needed to live for myself, for my family, feel active and engaged. So it was really, it just kind of rolled. It was never hard to find that next client because of the word of mouth. And that's really how I did it.
It's funny. You just said something that reminded me of a funny story that just happened to be half hour before this call. Before this episode recording was on a prior call. I was talking to somebody about an event that's going on here in Dallas called the AI Exchange. Mm-hmm. And it's a networking organization that brings people together to share ideas and information. I have an opportunity to do about a 10-minute overview on the state of AI. It's going to be next Tuesday.
Great.
And the gentleman said to me, this is a really important topic, and I want to make sure small business owners don't get lost in the shuffle. He said, because I remember when the internet was booming and people were asking me questions like, hey, do you use email? and he goes, I was like, email? What do I need that for? He goes, I could just pick up the phone and call somebody.
That's
he
right.
said, I want to make sure people don't miss the boat like I did. He goes, now eventually, he goes, clearly we arranged this meeting via email. So clearly I caught on. He said, but he goes, I just didn't see it. I didn't understand it. Yeah. He said, and I think it's interesting that in the AI space right now, a lot of small and business owners are out there saying, I know I got to take advantage of this. I know there are tools out there for me to take advantage of it, right, but I don't know where to start because I don't have a formidable IT department and people researching these tools and knowing exactly where to make them fit.
Right.
So it's just funny. You triggered a memory there, which is
I won't trigger another one about that famous dial-up sound that we all loved so much.
Yeah, that was the best sound ever.
That was the best sound. Yeah, that was the best sound.
I just loved it. Yeah, it was great.
It was fun. Yeah.
So what was it? I want to pluck something out here because it's you've had an experience here that a lot of young folks are going to be living through, and that is, I work for a company. And this company is being acquired by a bigger company.
Right.
And that's very common today because, as a matter of fact, a lot of companies are built to be sold.
Yes.
Like the entrepreneurs are building them very specifically with the intention of selling them into something bigger. And if you look at all the energy that's going on in private equity right now, there's a lot of energy around, purpose building things like this.
Yes.
What was it like for you being a part of a company, having worked there for a number of years, and now all of a sudden you're acquired by a big company? Do you recall what it was like going through that?
It was very interesting because at the time, HP was not actually much bigger than Digital Equipment Corporation. I think at the time they made some mistakes. They missed the boat on the PC, which was a big mistake for that company. And eventually, they just could not sustain, the race for technology. And it was, I was there for a number of years, and even though it was such a big company, I think we had 20,000 employees when I was there.
Wow.
So it was a huge, huge company, but yet it had a small company feel because similar to BCN, there was incredible tenure there. So I think the thing that was the hardest was losing the possibility of losing those connections. And honestly, I was offered a package at the time.
Okay.
And so I took it because, again, it played into my goals for my life, right? Yeah. I wanted to be home a little bit more. I wanted to be with my son a little bit more. And that enabled me to do that. It enabled me to have some runway, to take a few months off and not work, which was really a pleasure. just to be with my son and do things and not have that part of my brain that was always thinking about work, but then get right back into it, and have some time to really think about what it was I wanted to do. So I think, what I see today for people is, and I'm going to take you back a little bit further
Yeah, please do.
to the way I grew up. And my dad, who is today 87 years old,
God
and
bless
as
him.
vibrant and wonderful and thoughtful and smart as he ever was, and he taught us from an early age how to assess situations, how to understand where people are coming from when they react to things, when they say things, and the way they behave. And what he used for that as his model was Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I don't
Unreal.
know if you're familiar with
I
that,
am.
but at the very bottom, you have your physiological needs. So you need air, you need water, you need
Yep.
food, and then you need your belonging, right? You need a place to live. You need safety, some security. And I think that what happens when companies are acquired is that if you have been somewhere for a long time, or even not a long time, but you've been there and you're feeling good about what you're doing and you've achieved kind of up on the triangle, and on that level, you've achieved a level of esteem. You feel respected. You know what you're doing. You feel good about what you do. All of a sudden, when things like acquisitions happen, it knocks people down
Yeah.
a level or two sometimes, right? Whether it's security, I don't know if I'm going to lose my job, or it's esteem. Now I have to prove myself all over again to a whole new set of people.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at what happens based on that as one, model to use, you can clearly see what happens to people, what they go through, the emotions that creates, the reactions that creates, how people may quickly jump to a new job, or they may hang in there because they feel so good at that company that they really want to make it work. So I think that, for me, it's a valuable tool to say, okay, I know why I feel this way, or I know why this person is reacting this way because I think this is how they feel. They
Yeah.
were here and now they're here, and they have to work their way back up that triangle.
It's a tough road. We've been a part of them. I've certainly been a part of a number of those, and what you described is spot on. And I think the lessons that I've learned along the way that have really suited me best are, I got some advice. I was working at Bear Stearns when it collapsed in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And it just felt like, you went from playing for the Yankees to being kicked back to a high school team, not even the minor leagues. You were just like,
Right.
holy cow. And we got scooped into the arms of JP Morgan Chase. They came in for the rescue. I watched a lot of emotional things happen because people had been there I wasn't at Bear for 20 years, where a lot of my colleagues were. They had their entire retirement tied up in the stock. And they went from having $20 million to zero. And, they were there when the stock IPO was in the teens. And then, when I joined the firm, it was $180 a share. So you could imagine the wealth people were building.
Of course.
And then when the deal is done, it's, the company's purchased for $10 a share. So it's, back to square one. But all these emotions are going on, like what's happening in their life. And somebody said to me at that time, Jeannie, hey, control what you can control.
Right.
And it was probably the best little nugget I've gotten, because I'd been a part of a number of acquisitions, and I was too stupid to know what my strategy for success was.
Right.
But it was the best strategy was that I was just a results guy. And so I said, hey, if I just keep doing what I'm doing and I deliver great results, I'm going to get recognized. And I didn't mind the challenge of proving myself over and over again when I was much younger. I understand as people move on in their career, you can become exhausted from it.
Right.
But control what you can control was the best part of it. And I love this topic in our conversation because I don't think folks are prepared for it. And I think and as I talk to people of all different age brackets, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and on, everybody has a different perspective on work ethic and what's important to them and where you might fit in that scale of human needs. The younger folks have different sets of motivation than we do.
Absolutely. And I think that, at least for me and probably for you, because we've talked about your family as well some, the more responsibilities you have, the more people you feel responsible for.
Sure.
That changes everything, right? Because it's not just you. It's not just you anymore. There are other people involved, other things at stake. And so that makes you think differently and feel differently. And I think that's just a natural evolution, as we go on in our lives.
It also gets extended when you're a leader in an organization. You've got people that they're sort of looking to you for their career notches, or they're looking for your mentorship, guidance, assistance in some cases. Right. When I was earlier on in my career, I moved around a little bit and people would come with me. And, you wind up feeling responsible for their success. They have to play a part in it, but you're not going to make your next move and go, shit, 6 people just followed me here and now I'm going to leave in 2 years. What are they going to do?
Right. Good point.
Do they want to move to another state again? Holy cow. So you pick up you pick up responsibilities along the way. As you're building teams because you're looking out for one another. So it becomes complex to navigate. It really does.
And that really speaks to you as your character, you as a person, because that's not necessarily true of everyone.
It's not. No, it's
not. And that gets to the whole notion of character, right? And your character and being committed to be a certain type of person and demonstrating that every single day. And one of the things that I found is so important is consistency in your character, consistency in the way you deal with people, consistency in the way you react to things. That goes a long way. And I strive for that every day, right? Whether it's, personal, professional, just be consistent. Yeah, we're all going to have ups and downs. I don't mean that, but people have to know what to expect when they interact with you. And I'm sure you've been in situations, as have I, where people react in a way that is so contrary to who you think they are as a person or who they have been. That's a real shock to the system. And that shakes confidence in the teams that work for you or with you. So I've always found that consistency is really critical.
How have you handled that? Well, without naming names, do you recall a time when somebody responded far differently than what you might have expected?
Yeah, I think, you think people are going to take something and say, okay, well, what are we going to do now? Thank you for that information. Not the greatest news. Where do we go now? Instead of, I've had situations where people have completely kind of gone off the rails and really, in my opinion, overreacted. And this is another great analogy that I'll use again from my dad. Thank you. Is the way we communicate with each other. So one of the models he taught us is to look at communication. You've got these two sides of the piece of paper, right? You've got parent, adult, child on either side of the paper. When people talk to each other, you can talk adult to adult. You can talk parent to child. You can talk child to child, understanding where people are. Sometimes people go from being adult to adult to they go parent to child. All of a sudden, their reaction to your news or their reaction to you, they become the parent and you become the child. It takes it out of that adult to adult communication and really changes the dynamic. And the key there is, as the person who's being spoken to as a child, you have to respond as an adult, right? You got to bring it back up. Always bring it back up. That's always the goal in communication. Again, personal, professional, it doesn't matter. Understand what's happening and always bring it back to adult, because that's where real communication takes place. That's where progress gets made. That's where issues get resolved when you're speaking on the same level.
What'd your dad do for a living?
What did he do?
Yeah.
He started off as an electrical engineer, working for companies like RCA and Texas Instruments back in the day. Quickly got into the circuit business and in the distribution model again. So kind of like our channel.
Okay.
And he was a sales executive for a number of those distribution companies. And then when he retired, he started a sales training, company on his own and did that probably for 10 years incredibly successfully and mentored, new salespeople, experienced salespeople, taught sales techniques, and we learned a lot from him, and we still are learning. When I go visit them, he'll say, "What are you working on?"
Amazing.
And I tell him, and he's right there with the, "Well, did you think of this? And did you think of that?" Or, "Well, you can see what's happening here, can't you?" And that was always one of his favorite phrases.
Freaking love that.
He would say, "Can you see it?" And we would go, "Yes, Dad, we can see it." But now, as an adult, I go, "Yeah, I see it." And it's so helpful to continue to have that kind of support and mentorship.
Such a gift.
It is a gift. And that's why I
Such a
say
gift.
I'm incredibly grateful every day for that, throughout my life and to still have that.
I guess that's where his thirst for this type of dialogue came from, and understanding doing sales training.
Right.
You really have to be study of human psychology,
Absolutely.
human emotion.
Yes.
Reading a room, sort of understanding that hierarchy of needs, right?
Right.
You really have to get into the science of it, because otherwise you're the person selling orange widgets when nobody wants orange widgets.
Exactly. Or
right?
you don't understand where the person you're trying to sell to, where are they? Where do they live? What are they trying to do? How can you help make them successful? So he always says the real value we bring is helping, let's say, customers, right? Eliminate the obstacles that impede their progress, right? Eliminate the obstacles, identify them, eliminate them, and help the customer achieve success through the value that you add. And so that really starts by, you have to identify the obstacles. People don't always come out and say, "Oh man, this is what's in my way."
Yeah.
Right? They talk around it, they talk over it, under it, but it takes a special person, or someone who can really focus on the person and that psychology to get at the real issue. And once that's identified, then you say, "Okay, well, what have you tried? What have you tried to get through that? Okay, what about this?" Right? Let's try this and see if that works. So you start to be a person that's bringing a solution to the problem that they're facing. And that's what sales is, right? It's what we do. It's what the technology advisor does with the customer. When you bring in a managed network and technology solutions provider like BCN to that opportunity, we're right beside you, helping to identify the obstacles, and then based on what we can do, trying to put a solution forward. And that's, it's, when you say it, it's not rocket science, but getting to getting into that obstacle and really identifying that and understanding what is it that's going to make that person successful individually and what's going to make their company successful. So
when I was a CIO of a mortgage company here in Texas, we were a big IBM shop, because the legacy platform still ran on AS400s. We had owned the code to it. It was very inexpensive. It operated pretty well. And so I was a consumer of IBM things, but not to the scale that we were here. I think I did a $25 or $30 million deal once with IBM for a lot of new hardware. And the person there who was it's such a weird story, and I'm going to tell you a long one to get to support a point you just made really here. But a guy named Bill Smith, turned out he was a neighbor because Bill's son and my daughter went to high school together and hung in a little small community of friends. Dylan, very super nice kid. And so I found out his dad worked for IBM, knew he was senior in the organization. Ultimately, I think he retired there after 40 plus years of service at IBM. Just incredible. And, but I was dealing with the local salespeople, and I said, and I had not yet met Bill, because we had, the wives met, and like we were working, and like, these things just socially, the wives were taking care of those calendars, and I had not yet met Bill. And so I said to my local sales guy, hey, you might want to knock on your boy Bill's door and let him know that his neighbor and his son's, the father of his son's friend is about to drop 25 large. And it might be nice if we had breakfast together. And Bill and I meet. Okay. We have breakfast together. Spectacular guy. Told me so many great stories. But I never forget the first time he said to me, we want to make you successful. Nobody had ever said that to me before. He wanted to make me successful because that meant if I were successful, everything else was clicking, because I would only find success if the company were successful. I would only find success if my people were successful. Like, he really knew it. He knew it, but nobody had used those very direct words with me ever before.
Interesting. Ever. That's what an interesting coincidence that you had that experience.
I did, and I recalled it, and it hit me. And Jeannie, I'm working on another book. It's called Sales and Social Currency.
Oh,
and it's about. I have the framework for it. I have the artwork for it. I have the opening. My why, like why I want to write this book. I always start with my why chapter, and I have that in bed. And I put a date to complete it out for August of this year.
Oh, wow.
That's how I've been doing these books, by the way.
That's aggressive.
I come up with a concept. I understand my why. I get really grounded in my why. I put a date out in the future. Now, after writing 2, I know the effort, and I block out time over the course of many months to just chip and chip and chip and chip away. This one's going to be a little different in that I'm really going to want to solicit a lot of feedback from people versus doing the studying I did, let's say, for the last book and getting stats and reading papers and whatnot. But I just think that the value of relationships and understanding things like this, they're becoming a lost art, and they're becoming but they're still of paramount importance. Somebody said to me, and this was again with my why, somebody said to me, hey, it would be great if everything were like a Netflix transaction in our channel, and we had a portal, and then you can go click how many licenses you want, and you just can consume your stuff, and you can download your license pack and the software, and it was just going to go, and it was going to be SaaS, and it was going to run. And I said, yeah, if everything we sold were Netflix, that would be fantastic. I said, but you're underestimating the level of complexity and the things that really a trusted advisor has to know.
Absolutely.
To be able to execute across this entire ecosystem. And so I started really thinking more deeply about these relationships and why they matter. And, it's funny that when I asked you the question earlier on, hey, you were brave to start your own business. How'd you get business? You said my network, right? Your relationships, the people you knew. You just described a company of people who've worked together for decades. Relationships, finding success, right? These things still carry. And I want to write this book, and I want to get the perspectives of so many different people from every decade of life,
right?
20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, possibly even 80s now. And I want to try to really expose the value of these relationships and understanding this simple fact, like how can you help make an individual successful, but having the understanding that in order to do that, you really have to check the boxes and understand what makes them successful. Like if you knew me, Jeannie, you would know, and I think you do know this, that I won't find myself successful unless everybody around me is being lifted as well. I will give it away before I take it. I think, the rising tide lifts all boats, and that's
Absolutely.
always what I try to do.
All right.
I'm not a me person when it comes to it, and it's served me well in life because I have had more than enough, and I continue to have more than enough. So for me, it's very important. So if somebody were to say to me, "Hey, Vic, I'm going to make you successful," they would need to invest enough to know that meant that the ecosystem that I support, my clients are successful, the people are winning, the program manager delivered the best project they could ever deliver for that company. The ROI was strong, and the chief operating officer get to King Kong his or her chest, right? And there were things that happened there. When you guys discuss things and you're part of these conversations at BCN, does this topic come up like this? Is this something more you have conversations with your dad on still? Like, I love that we got here. I did not expect this, and I'm jazzed on the topic. I want to know more about what you think on this topic.
Well, what I think and what I've experienced at BCN is really the constant challenge to accurately describe and support the value that you bring to the relationship. You can never lose sight of that, and you have to stay true to it. So, for example, we recently, over the last 6 to 7 months, we started an initiative to connect with the quoting portals of the major TSDs. This was something that we had talked about 2 or 3 years ago, and the thought was, no, we don't want to do that because our value really is working with the channel manager for that TSD or working with the technology advisor, getting to know the customer. We don't want to just be someone that, you quote it in a portal and if it looks good, you buy it. But we came to a place where we said, we know we can do this so that people are aware that we bring value, or can compete in certain markets. We can create awareness of BCN as an option in certain situations, but yet to complete that deal, to take that deal to the next step, you must engage. You must engage us. We have to be in a conversation with you in order to get to the next level. And I think we're going to see great success there, not only because more and more of the technology advisor community will see BCN, see us as an option over and over and over again, and that may start a relationship. That may be a phone call to one of our sales directors that starts a relationship that didn't exist. But we must engage with you, and you must engage with us. It has to be that kind of a conversation for us to really show you the value that we can bring. Because when we look at it, we're not selling a portfolio of cookie cutter solutions, right? There's not, hey, you're in the healthcare industry and you need to do this. Well, here, I'm going to sell you package 123. Right. It's not that at all. And you know that, right? Yep. You got to get in there. You have to understand what's going on. There's so much more to the business of connectivity today than there ever was. I mean, it's not your grandmother's connectivity, right? It's not like, oh yeah, hook me up with an internet circuit and I'm good to go. Right. This is, everybody wants unbreakable internet, and they deserve unbreakable internet. We have the capabilities to do that now. We have the capabilities to say you need at least 2 connections, maybe more, depending on, what you're trying to do. You need security. You need, SD-WAN to get in there and really elevate those connections and manage those connections. So that that can't happen in a portal, in my opinion.
I agree.
It's not a marketplace where you click on A, B, and other customers who bought this like that. That's not what it is. This is still a business of guidance and knowledge and support and understanding what's going to work, right? So you need somebody with the experience to know this is how you're going to be the most successful, by engaging, having the conversation, helping us understand what it is you need so that we can go back and do what we do best, which is craft this custom solution based on your exact needs, not Joe Smith next to you or Mary Jones on the other side. This is your specific solution based on your needs.
Jeanne, you ever hear of the term confirmation bias?
No, I can't say that I have.
Confirmation bias is, I believe a certain thing, and I am drawn to the things that support the way I think.
Interesting.
So, and I seek them out subconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I seek them out subconsciously. I constantly check myself and ask myself the question, am I seeking out the things that resonate with me to say, you see, you're right. You feel great.
Right.
And when I hear you talk about the relationship and engaging and partnering and all things, these are all the things I believe. They are wholeheartedly. And I believe them emotionally. I believe them from a data-driven perspective as well, just from a results perspective. But I wonder sometimes if, and I test myself and I say, hey, because there are people, like I had a conversation with a very, very senior person in our space who pitched me this portal and sort of, clearinghouse thing. And that was their confirmation bias. Right? Mm-hmm. They found 3 articles that said this marketplace is the way it's going to go. And there are more and more things coming into a marketplace. And sure, if I'm selling a product like Crisp that is an easy plug-in, requires not a lot of help, I can log in, I can get my stuff, I can download it. There are places for the marketplace. Connectivity, AI, or certain things about AI integrating with my platform. Pardon me. Quick cough. I brought back the Vegas crud, Jeannie. When you guys sit around and talk about these beliefs, right? You're so articulate and you're so passionate. I feel like how much you really believe this level of engagement that needs to happen. Do you ever say to yourself, and if you don't, or should you, do you ever say to yourself, is this just the way I think? And am I blind? Do I have a blind spot here? And I'm just curious if you test yourself on it. And I'm not challenging you, by the way, because I started off the conversation by saying, I agree with you 1,000%, like 100+%. Mm-hmm. It's what I believe. I'm committed to writing material about it that's going to come out in the summer. Yeah. But I'm wondering what the conversation in your rooms are like when it comes to this.
Well, I can tell you that I believe it wholeheartedly. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I say, does it really matter? But it really does. And the reason I believe it so strongly is because it has repeatedly created success. There are repeatedly good outcomes to building strong relationships. And again, that's a human condition, right? It's not a business condition. It's not a channel condition. It's a human condition. And I think that sometimes we forget that every day you're dealing with human beings, right? Yep. And human beings, you can try to segment and have different tunnels in your thought processes and separate this and separate that. But at the foundation, we're all human beings, right? We all want to connect. Everybody wants to have that connection. And I think in business that connection has always proved successful, no matter how things have changed. Certainly in today's world, I would never have dreamed that you could do so many things without ever talking to a person.
Yeah.
Right. And it's troubling sometimes when I think about the young people growing up today who believe that's the way things are always going to happen. I think it's a big job.
You've tossed me a softball, by the way, because where I was going to go to is like, how do we marry this with the way the generations that follow us are coming into engagement? I mean, I have a 27-year-old son, and 29-year-old daughter and 22-year-old daughter, and they engage differently. This beautiful thing right here, this little device that has more power than sending the Apollo 11 to the moon. It's a gateway to the universe for them. And so it's, hey, is that store open? Oh, I checked their hours online. Right. So the hours say they're open. That's a highly trusted resource. If I want to know if the car wash is open during the rain, though, like it was raining and it stopped.
It's not going to tell you that.
So did they open?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right? Did they close? Yeah, if somebody's updating the schedule and it's accurate, but I'll call.
Well, here's a perfect example just from today. So anybody who knows me knows that this is my signature drink, the Trenta.
What is that?
Trenta Black Iced Tea, extra ice from Starbucks. I get it every day, no matter where I am. Okay. I carry it around with me all day long, my constant companion. So today, some years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I was in New Jersey at our headquarters, and I'm fortunate enough that I have a cousin and his wife who live a mile from the office. So whenever I go, I stay with them, and I combine, family visit and business. So I was there, and I said, I didn't have my car because I flew. I said, hey, could you bring me to Starbucks on the way? They were going to give me a ride to the office. I said, I promise I'll be as quick as possible. And my cousin said, well, why don't you use the mobile app? And I said, oh, I don't want to do that. And she said, why not? I said, well, I don't know. Miss the connection of going in and talking to the people. And she looked at me. She said, they don't want to talk to you. They just want to make your tea and they want you to leave. So now I started using the mobile app. But this morning, when I went to use the mobile app, it said that my preferred location was out of this. And I thought, well, how can that be? But I couldn't order it because if it says it's out, they won't let you order it. So my phone told me one thing. I could have said, oh, geez, and I could have driven an extra, 10 minutes to a place that said they had it. But instead, I went there and I said, gee, your app says you're out of this, but is that possible? She said, no, we have it. I'm so sorry about that. So it's a great source of information, but it can't tell you everything. Sometimes it's wrong. I just think that the way we get younger generations to believe in the power of human connection is through example. I think that's really the way it has to be done. They have to learn. People have to focus on making sure that's part of what you talk about when you bring people into your new company or when you bring new people into your company, that's part of the values of a company. It's part of the mission to have those strong relationships and to talk about why that breeds success, to talk about the experience. When I joined BCN a couple of years after, we really did a full court press on the customer experience. And it has really just become such a part of the culture. When we started, it was really just about a shared vocabulary. Get everybody using the same words over and over and over again. When you communicate, when I would write things, when I would share things, it would be in there. And then eventually that shared vocabulary just becomes the vocabulary. Like people don't think about it anymore. They just say it. And it was always fun for me to hear people in different organizations or at different levels in the organization use the term, the BCN customer experience. And I'd say, yeah, it's sticking. Nice. Right. But that's how it has to happen. You just have to lead by example. You have to show proof of success and you have to stick with it. You can't be put off when people aren't immediately receptive to your thoughts.
Takes a bit to stick.
It does. You have to stick with it.
So when did your dad introduce you to Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Oh my gosh. I was probably in middle school. It's been, absolutely.
How often did you talk about it?
Quite a bit. I would say once or twice a week it would come up in conversation, and it wouldn't be
such a gift.
It wouldn't be, hey, come on over here, I want to talk about this. It would come up when when we would be saying, oh, this person did this, or my teacher today behaved like this, or I didn't understand that, and I don't know why this is happening. And that would be a traditional, let's go back and think about what was that person going through? What was on that person's mind? Where do you think they were? What do you think made them react that way? So it was a way to help us understand what was happening around us, situations that we found ourselves in as young people, and then young adults, and now, older adults. And it's just a foundational concept. And the thing that I love is now it's multi-generational. So my son, who spent all those years, with my mom every day and with my dad a lot, he now knows and says the same things. He assesses life through the same lenses that I was given. He got those too from my dad, reinforced,
How
through
old is
our
your son?
conversations. He's 34.
Man, what a gift. So for those, I'm going to put this up as an overlay on our screen. I'll do a little post-production work here, but this is something that I talked to a good friend, 40 plus year friend, and he's a coach in our channel, Coach Tony. I'm sure you've met him. Physiological needs being sort of the foundation of Maslow's hierarchy of needs: survival, food, water, shelter, sleep, right? The next thing is you go up the stack, safety needs, right? Once physiological needs are met, people need security, stability, protection from harm. Like, who wants to run around feeling like that they're unsafe?
Right.
Social connection, love, and belonging needs, intimacy, and a sense of belonging. Esteem needs, self-respect, recognition, achievement. This is my esteem needs are so high on the chart personally, but I don't need it from others. Like, I find things, and as I've studied this and really understand things about myself, like, Jeannie, I'll clean the garage and I'll step back and look into it and take pictures, and I go like, like achievement,
It comes in many forms.
It comes in so many forms, but through understanding these needs, when I say to myself, why is it that I'm such a maniac that, like, when the garage is clean, I'm so happy? It's not that it's clean. And there's some sense to order and things and lack of clutter and all that, but achievement, because even as a young kid, I could find achievement in any job I ever had, and I felt good by it. And then the self-actualization needs, was the highest level, and people are seeking to reach their full potential and sort of having meaning in their life, right? And man, this is why I love this podcast. Okay, because when I did not expect this to have this topic. This is my favorite topic in the universe, by the way, Jeannie. Understanding people, why they do what they do. I'm going to forever use bringing that back up to adult.
It's awesome.
That's a great nugget. People have asked me, hey, how have you liked doing the podcast? And I say I'm 57 episodes smarter than I was last year. Right. And I'm now another episode smarter. Like, I've got a nugget along the way. And hopefully for people who are having an opportunity here, this is the gold that comes from doing this, and I do have a sixth sense for inviting people on that I just have a gut feeling I'm going to get something great from, because I could kind of sense who they are. And so I'm glad I was right about this one as well. And I'm glad the audience is going to pick this up, because
I'm honored.
Understanding the why and how people make, and the hierarchy of needs is really a great sort of North Star to point to. Like, when you see people do what they do, fight for what they fight for, act inappropriately, like what's at odds with one of those needs, which is causing this response.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so interesting. And I think when you go up and esteem and self-actualization, I think, and we actually just had a conversation about this, my dad and I, because I was very, very honored back in January to be promoted to the chief marketing officer at BCN. And I say this not as a bit of self-promotion, but to explain this concept. And it was so meaningful to me, not necessarily because of what people would think or the title itself, but because when you go back and you think about what I wanted to do in life for my career, that to me was the ultimate, right? I mean, that is kind of the pinnacle of, I want to be in advertising. I want to be in marketing. I want to be in branding. To have that, to be responsible for the chief marketing officer types of duties is really the pinnacle for me. But it's really they're flashes, like you don't get to the top and always stay at the top. You don't,
Right.
you have to recognize that. Like it comes and it goes. And being able to experience, even for a little while, that sense of, wow, I'm all the way up here. Doesn't mean I'm not going to get knocked down a couple of levels by something, but
Yeah.
I had that experience and I know what that feels like. And that enables you to really help other people get there, and
That's such
see
an important,
what that means.
that's such an important bit of awareness that you have that I want to give you a lot of credit for. I have a very good friend who's in the market for his next opportunity right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he's doing all the things that you would do to find your next opportunity, including leveraging his network.
Mm-hmm.
And so in his network is a former, very, very senior person on Wall Street in technology. I'm being very careful to leave names out. A heck of a person, a great individual, was highly regarded, I'd say, in the, let's call it late 90s, early 2000s, as like the it person on Wall Street when it came to managing big technology. And went on to have just an amazing run, an amazing career, a number of other jobs post the crash of what was going on at Lehman Brothers. And when my friend called him for just say, hey, you got anything going on? You know what he said? He said, hey, I appreciate you calling me and I'm quite flattered. He goes, but I'm nobody now.
Oh, wow.
That's what he said. He said, I'm nobody now.
That's sad.
And it hit me in the gut. Now, he didn't say it in a way where he was feeling sorry for himself.
Yeah.
Because he had an amazing career, career. Money, high titles, big projects. I've got some amazing stories about what this individual did during 9/11 to sort of resurrect Lehman Brothers from the ashes.
Mm-hmm.
But it just shook me a little bit. But then a cool calm came over me and just said, hey, this is a person who just said, hey, I had this amazing run and I'm not going to be grinding and performing at this peak level for my entire life. Like I'm going to accept that was a chapter in my book.
It was a point. Right.
It was a point and I enjoyed it and I executed on it. And here I am. And I'm transitioning to the, next stage of enjoying his life.
Right. Right.
And so I think that's an important nugget to pull out because when, you trip that memory bank when you said, hey, I've achieved this. I've done it. I feel great. But it's like an EKG. Maybe I'll go higher. Maybe I'll come down a little bit. Maybe I'll stay at that spot and choose my spots. But the fact, it seems to me, and correct me if I'm not reading this right, like you're at peace with the journey.
Absolutely. I completely am. I have been, again, I'm so grateful that my career has been one of continuous improvement. I mean, I've never had a job that I didn't really like. I've never worked for people that I didn't really like. And maybe that's, when I look back, maybe that's because I wouldn't have stayed. Maybe it's because that is so important to me, to like the people I work with, to respect the people I work with, to be able to learn from people. You get to a certain point in your career sometimes and you say, well, what's left to learn? There's a lot left to learn. Always is. I learn things every day from all kinds of people. And you have to be open to that. But I've been just so fortunate in my career to have these opportunities to, to be at BCN has been honestly, it's been the most rewarding opportunity of my career. And I don't say that lightly because I've done a lot of really cool things. But the empowerment and just the whole belief system of the company is so strong and so amazing. I just, it's a pleasure to get up every day and do the things I do. And I just, I don't know, I can't say enough about this company in particular, but, again, it's just been a wonderful journey, and I'm happy to be where I am today.
So cool. Hey, let's go back. I made a little note here. I said we're going to
Sure.
come back to channel partners.
Sure.
In this industry. And I just love talking about it because I think the more people that know about the channel, the better off we all are.
Right.
But I still think somehow it's the greatest and best kept secret in the universe. First of all, I was consuming from the channel since 2001. Mm-hmm. I was a customer of Steve Gerhardt's. Matter of fact, before he went into the channel, he was working at carriers and I was a customer. And when he went from one carrier, he cold called, he met the guy that was running tech where I worked. And ultimately the relationship came to me. And then the guy I worked for left and I was the person in charge and I was driving all the D&M stuff. But, so I was always ordering connectivity, building networks, calling, long distance, all things that were prominent in the channel in the early 2000s, through D&M, through Steve. And, I got to understand the value of, having someone on my side. Mm-hmm. Or as we like to say, you got a guy, right? So, but having somebody on your side that was really my advocate in navigating this world of connectivity and technology, because direct people come at you from every angle. And of course, they're going to tell you that their
stuff is the best.
Or product's the best, right? Mm-hmm. But to have somebody agnostic to that and really and he never said this to me, but he acted like this every single day, which is the same, if not better, wanted to make me successful.
Right.
Because he knew that if I were successful, he would be successful, as would the people that worked at his company and, the people he employed, et cetera. Mm-hmm. This channel is full of that. And when you talk about seeing people and you've been there for 17 years, I've been there since 2016 was my first real channel partners as somebody sort of kicking the tires of coming into the channel. But what you said is true. When we are on the playing field at channel partners, I feel like there's no competition, right? I don't feel like you guys are cutting the throats of some other provider that looks similar to you. We're not cutting the throats of another trusted advisory organization or partner.
Right.
I came back with the Vegas crud because of all the hugs and the how you doings and the atta boys and atta girls and the backpacks.
It is a bit of a double-edged sword.
Jeannie, I was so sick. I mean, I don't know, whatever I picked up there, it was so bad. And it was compounded by when I got back to the Dallas area, the pollen on my car was like an inch thick.
Oh my gosh. I've heard it's been terrible there.
The crud and the allergies and all this stuff, it was bad. But this channel, and you've been around it a lot longer than I have been, this channel is amazing.
It is amazing.
From a can-do attitude, from a solutions for companies, large, medium, and small, the biggest of enterprises, the smallest mom and pop, everything in between, the amount of care, the character of people that we come across, it's amazing. It's completely amazing. And I always say, and Steve says this all the time, he says, why doesn't everybody do business with us? We got the greatest platform and the product in the universe. Like, we can help companies save money, succeed, partner with the best solution providers, hold the solution providers accountable, like partner with them to be an extension of everybody's team. So we create this one team environment geared towards the success of the company. What's your take on these events, the channel? Like, give me your soliloquy, if you will.
Sure. Well, I said before that every year when you go to Las Vegas, it's like coming back from summer break, to college. You just walk down the street, you walk through those halls, through the casino, through the expo center, and you just, if you know that it's going to take you 5 minutes to get from A to B, you got to leave 20 minutes because you're going to be, hey, how are you? Oh my gosh, it's so nice to see you. Oh my, I haven't seen you in so long. And so there are always going to be those pit stops along the way because you just know so many people. And I would go back to Maslow.
Okay.
And I would go to that belonging, the belonging level.
Yeah.
That's what
You
feels
nailed it.
that's what feels so good about it because we all feel that sense of belonging. People know you, they like you, they respect you, you feel similarly about them. It's just it's like a week long affirmation of you as a person, you as a professional. It's just makes you, it's an endorphin high. I mean, it's just like the endorphins are going crazy because the experiences are so good, when you're there. And I think it really comes to that sense of belonging. It's so important to everyone to be part of a community. And that's what this really is a community. And being part of it just feels really good.
It sure
And,
does.
and that's why I love it.
Amazing. Well, I'm looking forward to many more years in this community, and really enjoying it and making my customers successful.
Yes.
Right. And understanding what it is that would make them successful, I think is paramount. That's something we focus on every single day. Jeannie, this has been an amazing hour. And I can't thank you enough for coming on and for giving me a few more lessons that I can now put in my toolkit along the way and sharing some of your thoughts and insights. So thank you so much for being so generous with your time and your thoughts and your experience. And I know the audience is going to love this. This is going to be a top episode.
Thank you. It was really fun talking with you. And it was fun to go back and in history and think about all the things that have really had such an impact on me and sharing those with you. You made it really, really a nice time.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Thank you, Vic.
Bye. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.